Hello, my name is Beth Bumgarner. I'm a mom of a boy with Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy, and I'd like to tell you about my son. In July 2010, our family became complete when our third child, Ben, arrived. From the day he was born, he lit up the room. As he grew, his dimpled smile and big belly laughs were infectious. People stopped me in the grocery store to ask me if he was always so happy. His big brother and sister, Zach and Gracie, loved him and instantly became his biggest cheerleaders and protectors. My husband, Kevin, and I were so proud of our young, healthy, happy, minivan-sized family. Our pride turned to concern as we realized that Ben was not meeting his motor milestones. He started receiving early intervention services at 13 months to address his motor and speech delays. We were overjoyed when he finally took his first steps at 22 months old. While we were hopeful that he was just a late bloomer, we still had concerns as Ben approached his third birthday and would age out of early intervention. This is when our journey with Duchenne began. In 2013, shortly after his third birthday, my family's world was turned upside down when Ben was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Finding out that my sweet, vibrant, happy 3-year-old had such a devastating condition broke my heart into a million pieces. I wondered how our family could ever find happiness again. Once I got through the initial fog of Ben's diagnosis, I started to research, and our rocky clinical trial journey began. Surely there had to be a clinical trial that would help change the outcome for Ben. It was all very overwhelming at first. I attended my first PPMD conference in 2014 and sat through every clinical trial session. I struggled to understand the science and data, and I watched way too many slides involving mice. I wondered how this would ever apply to my child. I highlighted and dog-eared the clinical trial book to refer back to later. The drug Adalurin that was being tested in boys with a nonsense mutation like Ben's was our best hope. However, at the time, Ben had just turned 4 and was not eligible for this trial. He had to be at least 6. There were no other trials for boys as young as Ben. As Ben approached his 6th birthday, the Adalurin trial stopped enrolling older boys and began trials for boys ages 2 through 5. The timing couldn't have been worse for Ben. We continued to keep an eye on other trials and looked into a few that were available to 6-year-olds. I got my hopes up about one trial, and after a series of miscommunications with the trial coordinator, it filled up before Ben was able to be enrolled. I became so frustrated with the clinical trial roller coaster. I would get so hopeful about a treatment only to have those hopes washed away. For my own mental health, I took a step back from trying to find the perfect clinical trial. When you have a child with Duchenne, birthdays are bittersweet. While singing happy birthday and watching your baby blow out candles, in the back of your mind is the thought that your child is 1 year closer to losing his fight with Duchenne. Ben's 8th birthday last summer hit me hard. Boys with Duchenne usually start to decline between the ages of 7 and 9. So I felt a sudden urgency to jump back into the clinical trial game. I found that there were at least 3 promising trials that Ben might be eligible for. Gene therapy trials were taking place. There was also a trial starting up very close to home, and Adalurin had opened back up to a wider age range. My husband and I started watching webinars and making lists of pros and cons, but the answers did not come easily. Gene therapy was certainly exciting, but still so new and scary. What will the long-term effects be? What if the dosing is not yet high enough? Once Ben does a gene therapy trial, he will not be eligible for any other trials. Did we want to put all of our eggs in the very new gene therapy basket? Ben screened for a trial close to home at Virginia Commonwealth University. I was devastated again when I got a phone call that he had performed too well on his 6-minute walk test. It would not be able to participate in the trial. So we were back to Adalurin, a drug for boys like Ben whose Duchenne is caused by a nonsense mutation. It's designed to enable the cells to produce a protein that's otherwise missing in boys with Duchenne. He is currently participating in this trial at Children's Hospital of the King's Daughter in Norfolk, Virginia. This trial is placebo-controlled, so for 72 weeks, there's a 50% chance that he's not receiving treatment. However, at the end of the 72 weeks, he will have access to the drug. We moved ahead knowing that even if he is on placebo now, this was likely the fastest way to get access to this treatment. Ben has dealt bravely with all the blood tests, the EKGs, and the echocardiograms. Although he still hates all those little stickers being pulled off his belly and chest. Sometimes that's worse for him than the blood work. He focuses on the fact that the nurse, doctors, physical therapists, and phlebotomists love his dimples and shower him with attention. He never lets them forget when he's earned a trip to the treasure chest. During one visit to Norfolk, we had enough downtime to discover some cool local restaurants and to visit the Virginia Aquarium. We enjoyed our one-on-one time together, something rare when you're the youngest of three. He kept telling me how he really loved Freemason Abbey, the restaurant that used to be a church. He also told me countless times, "Mommy, thank you for taking me to the aquarium. It was so cool, and it will really help me one day when I'm a marine biologist." We are hopeful that Ben is receiving the study drug and not a placebo, but we are also happy to be contributing to the drug development that will help bring more approvals to market, approvals that can help to end Duchenne. We are hopeful that by participating in this trial, Ben's life expectancy is being extended. But we also know that as his bittersweet birthdays continue to come and go, he's helping future generations of boys with Duchenne. I'm excited to be here today to have this community meeting about the prospect of platform trials in Duchenne for 3 reasons. One is combination therapies. Ben has been in this trial for almost a year now, but in the back of my mind are several worries. Is this the right trial for Ben? Are we wasting time on a placebo? Is there another studied drug that could help him more? In about 6 months, he will be on Atalorin for the extension study. Will he be able to participate in new trials and stay on Atalorin? Atalorin is designed to help boys produce small amounts of dystrophin. This is so important in the treatment of Duchenne, but so is heart and lung health, treating fibrosis and inflammation, muscle growth, and protection. Our community knows it's going to take a multifaceted treatment approach to get close to curing Duchenne. There's an opportunity cost to choosing one clinical trial over another. Are we choosing the right drug? What if by choosing one trial we gave up the right drug? What if platform trials can test multiple therapies at once? We need to test therapies together to determine which ones will work together. Another reason I think this is so important is inclusion. Even with all the ups and downs and uncertainties our family has faced with the clinical trial process, we know we are fortunate. Ben is eligible for multiple clinical trials. He's the right age. He's still ambulatory. He's been on a stable dose of steroids. Participating in a clinical trial makes us feel we are doing something to slow the progression of Duchenne. It gives us hope. However, this hope is not available to many of those in our Duchenne family. Ben's friend Wesley is 16, just 7 years older than Ben, and is non-ambulatory. When Wesley was Ben's age, he was not eligible for any of the trials that were available at that time. Now there are many more trials. He is excluded from most of them because he can no longer walk. Wesley's mom, Jessica, is one of the strongest people I've ever met and has been an incredible friend and mentor to me as I navigate a road that she has traveled before me. Jessica would do anything for Wesley and would love to have the opportunity for him to participate in a clinical trial. Every time she researches a possible trial and finds out he's ineligible, she loses a bit of hope. Even though Wesley will never walk again, there may be some therapies that can help his heart and lungs be stronger for longer, extend his lifespan. Including all Duchenne boys in trials would be a game changer for Wesley and so many like him. And the third thing that I think is really important about this is streamlining the process. As my story illustrates, the clinical trial process is not for the faint of heart. It is difficult to navigate and takes time and persistence. Because Ben was only 3 at diagnosis, and because I have a great support system of family, friends, bosses, and coworkers, I was able to get Ben started in a clinical trial. It took several years, including 1.5 years of taking a break before I powered through and got him into a trial. However, so many Duchenne families do not have the time, support, energy, or flexible jobs to jump through all these hoops. Streamlining the clinical process can help more families participate. The clinical trial process needs to be more focused on combination therapies, more efficient, and more inclusive. I'm very hopeful that our community will be able to develop a platform trial protocol. We need to give more families hope through trial participation. We need to help researchers gather better data to develop more effective therapies. We need to give Ben, Wesley, and other boys with Duchenne more birthdays. Thank you.
and that's why we're here today. Thank you, Beth, so much for sharing your personal story and making us all remember why we're here. That was a very powerful story. So good morning and welcome to the Duchenne Platform Trial Stakeholders meeting. We're thrilled to have so many people here with us in person in the room in Silver Spring, and also those of you who are on live stream listening. We're just really excited, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time to participate in this meeting. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Abby Bronson. I'm the SVP of Research Strategy at PPMD. I have with me the board chair and interim CMO of IAC for Children, Dr. Ed Connor, and Dr. Jane Larkindale, who's the executive director of DRISC at Critical Path Institute. And you'll hear from both of them in just a moment. So you're going to hear today from a variety of people all talking about the platform trial protocol, what it might do for Duchenne, how it works, what are the advantages of this paradigm? And then 3 panels are going to take a deep dive into some of the critical elements so we have time for lots of questions and discussion. There's been a lot of thought and hard work that has gone into to get us to this place today. We've had input from clinician scientists, statisticians, patients, advocacy organizations, physical therapists, as well as industry and FDA. So I really want to thank everybody who's put all the hard work in to get us where we are today. And oh, here's the clicker. So what's the big picture problem that we're trying to solve here today? Since the gene was cloned in the mid-1980s, the Duchenne community has made so much progress. Through the MD Care Act, we had money that was flowing into neuromuscular research, including Duchenne, so that we could understand the basic science of the disease better. We led innovations in care, as this graphic is showing you, things like cardiac meds, steroids, ventilation support, cough assist, spinal surgery, and this all led to extending the life of a person with Duchenne. In 2015, we came together as a community and we wrote draft guidance for drug development in Duchenne, and that was a really big accomplishment. And now we've come together as a community and we're on the brink of newborn screening for Duchenne, which will really allow us to treat patients earlier and earlier when there's less disease progression to stop. So we've accomplished a lot. We are a mighty community. And all this has led to significant investment into our pipeline. I think many of you have seen this chart as it's evolved over the years. There's about 30 trials ongoing right now, and there's probably an additional 15 or so companies with products in either discovery or preclinical. So this is a really robust pipeline. A recent IQVIA study showed that after ALS, Duchenne has the largest drug development pipeline. But as we just heard from Beth, why are these trials taking so long? Enrollment for a larger trial, can take anywhere from 2 to 4 years. I think we all have personal experience with this. And then there's the data analysis, the submission. Meanwhile, as we heard, boys are in this trial, they're waiting, and then when an answer finally comes, and it doesn't work, and they have no choice left. They're aged out, or they're walking too slow, or they're not walking at all. They've run out of trial options. We know that the randomized controlled trial is the gold standard for providing the evidence for effectiveness and safety, but if there was another way that we could provide that level of data, somehow use patients more efficiently, randomize less to placebo, get to the answer more quickly if a drug was working, accelerating those that are showing promise, and failing fast the ones that aren't. Wouldn't this possibility be something worth a try? So PPMD does a lot of patient engagement work. We're listening to you. We're trying to understand what's important to you through our benefit risk surveys, patient surveys, focus groups, our annual conference. And what we've heard, I think you all know, simply put, we just don't have enough time. We have to speed things up. We've heard that the risk of being assigned to placebo is actually a deterrent to getting into trials, so that can slow the whole process down. And we don't have time to be put on a placebo. We've heard that the inclusion criteria are too limiting, and that there are many individuals that would like Wesley, that want to be able to be in a trial and at least contribute data, but because of their age or their functional status, they're not eligible. And we've heard that there's a worry that getting into a particular trial might limit future eligibility for another trial. So again, there's another deterrent. And over again, and we heard from Beth this morning, we need a way to study the, quote, cocktail of drugs, the combinations that it's really going to take to make an impact on this disease. So again, if there's a way to address these issues, isn't it worth a try? And that's what we're here to talk about today. Platform trials can address these things and make the trial system faster, more efficient, much more patient-centric, and create a path to study combinations. So if you look back, there's examples, great examples of communities coming together and creating beneficial change for their patients. I think we have people in this room, Dr. Connor, including Richard Klein, that were part of the HIV/AIDS community, which really started the era of clinical trial networks and collaboration. And they've really, over the years, been able to turn their disease into something manageable using combinations. There's a children's oncology group where almost every child who has cancer, when they go to a care center, they get put on standard of care and they're added to a protocol, a trial protocol. And the CF Foundation's Therapy Development Network, they have a lot of standardized processes and systems that are making everyone work together and moving the system faster. So all of those collaborations have yielded tremendous benefits for patients. And then built on the key learnings and successes of those early collaborations are the master protocols of today, they're really transforming trial design to benefit patients. We have the I-SPY and I-SPY 2 trial in breast cancer, Lung Map for lung cancer, pancreatic cancer, and they're non-oncology examples as well. There's the DIAN-2 and the IMI PEARL study, the EPAD study for Alzheimer's. There's a Crohn's platform trial. And there's an ALS platform trial that's ongoing or in the development phases. And we're lucky enough to have Marianne Chase here from that ALS effort, and you're going to hear from her later in the day. And all of these trials are using these principles of master protocols, standardizing many operational aspects of running the trial and using statistical innovations so that you can enroll overall less patients. And of those patients that are enrolled, there are fewer on placebo. So we've worked on this platform trial for some time now, and that's what this opportunity I really think comes at a time that we can't waste, because there's so much momentum in drug development right now in our space that through a collaboration we can spur it along and make it go even faster. So a couple things. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be a flick of a switch and we all turn off our lights one night and we wake up the next morning and every trial and every patient is part of this platform trial concept. It's going to be an evolution, and I think people will come in slowly. And the second thing to remember, no sponsor or patient will be forced to participate. It's going to take some time to develop the momentum, but don't we deserve the innovation and creativity that these, the communities of the HIV community, cancer, Alzheimer's, or ALS are experiencing? So when I was looking back in some searching late at night about the HIV and AIDS community, trying to figure out what was the magic that they had that brought their communities together, I came across this quote by a researcher who was at the CDC, and he was right in the thick of it when it was all happening, and he said, "We seem to think with health problems, as with other things, that science and technology will always save us, even though in the realm of human endeavor, it always comes down to people and our relationships." So I think that's where this community is right now. This is where we are. We have the science and the technology to make this a reality. What we need now is all of you in this room and listening on the live stream to want to make it happen. We have the power to make change. So I ask you to carefully listen today and to all that you hear. Ask questions. We want a lot of discussion. There's complicated things to understand. Weigh the trade-offs and engage in making an informed decision about our future. So have a great meeting, and thank you very much. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Dr. Connor from IAC for Children. We're so lucky to have him on this project because, as you know, he was invested in the Duchenne community back in the 2009 when really drug development started taking off, and it's great that we don't have to bring somebody new up to speed from ground zero. So, Dr. Connor.
Thanks, Abby, and good morning. And it's really a pleasure to be back, as Abby referred to, among the Duchenne community. A few years ago, I was at Children's National, and the head of the Office of Innovation Development was very involved. And there's some very good friends and colleagues that are sort of in the audience as part of that effort. And it's good to be back in the space, working in the space. What I'm going to talk about primarily is IACT for Children, to introduce to you what we are and what we're about and how we're involved in this specific project, and a little bit of overarching discussion about some of the broader issues when platform trials are being implemented. So IACT for Children is an independent 501c3. It is a public-private collaboration, and its goal is to advance innovative medicines and devices development and labeling to improve child health. So we really believe that that movement, that children are often at the end of the line when it comes to product development. It's really important to change the environment in which we've been sort of slow to the effort of getting the regulatory data, the safety and efficacy data that's really necessary in order to be able to advance child health. Our goal as a 501c3 nonprofit is to bring stakeholders together in the interests of children. So we really look for the opportunities where the greatest impact can happen, and begin to engage in those communities to be able to advance the work. Our goal is really on innovation, but not innovation for innovation's sake, but innovation for actually making a difference in what has been the traditional way of thinking about how to advance product development for children. And we are also quite interested in improving the efficiency of the system and the sustainability of the infrastructure. In pediatrics particularly, we tend to build things and then take them down and then build them again, and all of that creates a lot of inefficiency in the system. Obviously, we want regulatory quality data to be able to make decisions about the safety and efficacy of products, and our focus and obviously our everyday work is to impact child health. We're funded by a membership, a variety of biopharmaceutical and other members who come to the table as part of the IACT organization. We also are happy to have received a FDA U18 grant, which was given to both us and to the Duke Clinical Research Institute in order to be able to advance global infrastructure for pediatric product development. So that's sort of us. We are not a disease-specific entity. We actually work across therapeutic areas and work in the areas that we think we can bring the most value, as well as work to achieve the goals. The way that we focus is really in four main areas. We focus on strategy and planning. Strategy and planning really is the mantra of that space, is to think about how we can try to get it right the first time. Pediatrics is fraught with trials that have been put into the field that have either been unfeasible or difficult or complex or actually fail. And so we really need to make sure that there's engagement early on to make sure that we're creating the right opportunities for kids. And so planning and strategy isn't because we have any of the right ultimate answers about how to do it right in the first place. It's because we need to engage all of the community efforts and all of the right stakeholders to best have the opportunity to be able to make that happen. We work in strategy and planning in the pre-competitive space in areas that we think are going to advance the field writ large. And platform trials are one of the two major foci for IACT for Children over the course of these next years, because of their opportunities that can really make a difference in pediatric drug development in general. We also work in creating an infrastructure that is capable of doing product development as a skill set, so that we now have 50 various trial sites across the country and now internationally that basically focus on product development for kids and thus skill development in order to be able to generate regulatory quality data. That infrastructure is also interoperable, or is beginning to work interoperably with international efforts. So we are partners and have worked collaboratively with the Connect for Children organization, which is a similar public-private partnership in Europe, and in networks that exist in Japan and Australia and Canada and a number of other places around the world. All of those efforts are disease-agnostic efforts, but are focused on some of the really important areas of product development for kids. We develop tools and capabilities and other ability to increase efficiency of trials. And then obviously we think it's very important to advance the thought leadership in the space, and we try to do that as much as we can, including also persistently emphasizing the sense of urgency. I think one of the things that we learned in HIV times and in other things is that a sense of urgency, and I don't think that I can in any way represent a sense of urgency better than the speakers that went before me, but the fact of the matter is that we need to keep the agenda in front and center all the time. So the platform trials, as far as we see, are actually an important alternative to traditional methodology in product development for children. They don't substitute for every other way in which we use tools of product development, but they are a substantial advance and innovation that enables us to actually advance the field pretty significantly. The approach is gaining momentum. FDA, you'll hear from Drs. Dunn and Woodcock, and have taken the leadership in thinking about this as an innovative space and as a way to solve some of the problems and make efficient the clinical trials infrastructure. The approach is gaining momentum across a variety of therapeutic areas. As I mentioned, we work in a number of areas, and the conversations around platform trials among company sponsors who are looking at it as a methodology to improve the way in which they think about actually developing their pipeline across therapeutic areas in other disease areas where the similar problems to Duchenne are also identified, are all actively speaking and initiating projects. And you've heard about a few of those from Abby, but there are many more that are in the formative stages. The Duchenne Platform Trial is being developed in response to the development challenges that happen, and you've heard about those already. And our role in this has been to really work with the various stakeholders in protocol development in order to be able to actually gain enough insight and conversation and engagement about the protocol. You have to have a draft that's developed in order to be able to get that input. And in fact, we've worked with the early work that's happened through the work that Abby referred to, and into creating a draft of the protocol that we can then evaluate and get stakeholder input over. And that actually is the purpose of this meeting, where we also engage in these kind of meetings to get stakeholder engagement early. Part of the principles of IACT are really to maintain diverse stakeholder engagement early and on a continuous basis through the development of a project. And then there are many aspects of implementation for a platform trial or master protocol that go beyond just the science of the design of the trial. And many of those are equally important to the success, to the ultimate success of such a trial. So these are just a number. I'll just end with a couple of key success factors that are really obviously important in making these trials successful. And as you've talked to people that have gone through the exercise of implementing studies, these are really important elements. First of all, there has to be a valuable stakeholder value proposition. It has to be important to both the community and all the other stakeholders to engage in this sort of activity. And the value for each of the individual stakeholders that are involved has to be articulated and be important so that everybody can be engaged and feel like there's skin in the game to make this valuable. It needs diverse stakeholder engagement. It doesn't work if it's just a scientific exercise or just a medical exercise, but rather an exercise that includes all the stakeholders that are necessary. It also ultimately needs an entity. It needs something that holds the platform and then manages the platform so that it can be optimally beneficial. And that involves business aspects of such an entity, et cetera. And so the entity also needs to have product development experience, because the ultimate goal is to generate regulatory level data. It needs committed leadership and governance, and that committed leadership and governance from a scientific perspective, you'll hear from some of the folks who are in the process of the scientific leadership of this platform trial. But in addition to that, diverse stakeholders need to be part of the governance and leadership from the beginning. It also needs resources. I mean, at the end of the day, it takes resources to be able to have that entity function in a way that's going to generate the data that we actually need. And it ultimately needs a sustainability plan. It doesn't do any good to start it, to launch it, to have all great intentions and aspiration, and then not be able to ultimately complete it because we haven't thought about how that sustainability is going to happen. And ultimately, it needs a trial network. It needs places in which those studies can be implemented and completed. And all of these, and probably others that I didn't think about as I created the slide, are all important elements of bringing us to the table. So rest assured that we're also, this meeting is focusing on the trial and the design of the trial, but in addition to that, there's a considerable amount of work in the planning and thinking about how many of these other elements are going to come together in order to be able to implement the project at the end of the day. So it's a pleasure to be here. This meeting is really important for all of us. I think we all see this as a potential important innovation that has both challenges as well as major opportunities. Everything about product development is never simple. It doesn't sort of come with a clean answer and has issues that have to be addressed on many sides. And that's hopefully what we'll be doing today. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Jane Larkindale. I'm the Executive Director of the Duchenne Regulatory Science Consortium at the Critical Path Institute. I really want to pick up where Ed left off, that this is about stakeholders. This is a project for the community, and that's why we're here today, is to really get input from you. We need buy-in, we need understanding from the whole community, patients, parents, companies, people designing innovative trials, our regulatory colleagues. We all need to buy into this idea if it's to be a success. And I think that's what we're here for today, is to really hear from you what you're thinking, hear your concerns, hear where their issues are, so we can solve them. If we're going to make this a success, it needs to be by the community and for the community. So I work for the Critical Path Institute, which many of you will not have heard of before. We're an organization that was really set up with the goal of doing good, high-quality scientific drug development in a way that's innovative, new, and really getting regulatory quality tools to make it faster. Our idea is always to build consensus, bring the community together in the preclinical space, and develop tools that we can all accept and all get behind. My consortium, the consortium that I run, and I know that many of my consortium members are here in the audience, is obviously focused entirely on Duchenne. How do we make drug development for Duchenne quicker, faster, and make every trial really tell us something? So what we do is develop drug development tools. Specifically, my consortium is developing a series of mathematical models that will be turned into a clinical trial simulation tool. The idea is we'll be able to understand better which populations of patients will change and which endpoints more quickly, so we can make these decisions in a rigorous way more quickly. So that's what my consortium is working on. But this platform trial fits very closely into what we're doing, building community consensus. Is this something we as a community want to do? How do we do it well? How do we get the right people, the right expertise, and the right people together to make this a reality? Our specific role in this project is really working with regulatory interactions and hopefully using our models to help the statistical plans on the eventual data, but also helping with protocol development, outcome measure, decision making, and such like. But what we're really here for today is building consensus. Are we doing this the right way? We've developed a draft protocol. We want your input on that. We're going to be talking about the outcome measures that we're thinking about. And we want to hear from the patients and families. Is this feasible for you if your son's coming into a trial? We want to hear from the companies. Is this feasible? Are we asking too many outcome measures? Is this going to be too expensive for you? We want everyone to come together so that we can really understand, is this feasible? Can we make this work? And are we all behind this? Because this is a community project. It's not a PPMD project. It's not an IAC project. It's not a CPATH project. This is a project for the community. And that's really all I want to say for now. I'm very, very honored to be given the opportunity to introduce our FDA colleagues, Dr. Janet Woodcock and Dr. Billy Dunn, who are going to make some opening remarks. I'm not going to go through their bios. I think they're in the paperwork you were given when you checked in. What I am going to say is we work closely with the FDA at CPATH, and they are huge supporters of this community. They want to accelerate trials. They want to get effective drugs to you, the community, as fast as possible. This concept of a platform trial didn't originate with any of us on stage. It actually started with a paper that Janet Woodcock and Lisa Lavange wrote. They suggested to us, maybe this is a good thing for the Duchenne community. We then explored it, dug into it. As Abby said, we've done a lot of research with the companies. We've talked about it at patient conferences. We've done a lot of background work beyond that. But this idea comes from people who, just like us, want to accelerate drug development for this disease. We need to do it in a scientifically rigorous manner. We need to do it well. We can't just pull things out of our hat. But the FDA has been with us all the way. So I'm very honored to introduce our guest speakers, Dr. Janet Woodcock and Dr. Billy Dunn. Thank you.